All right, guys, thanks for joining me today. We're going to get started now. I hope you had a chance to grab a glass of water. So I want to thank you guys. I want to welcome you to our School of Commerce series. This is the 5th lesson we've done so far since the beginning of the year, and I'm excited to continue doing them for you and help you guys with new strategies on how to make more money from your Shopify stores. If you've attended these in the past, you'll kind of have an idea of how this is going to work. But if this is your first one, thanks for joining us. The whole webinar should take around 20 minutes for the presentation for what we're going to talk about, and then we're going to have a live Q&A afterwards where you guys will be able to submit questions and we'll answer them live on air. So let's get started here. Today's lesson is talking about CRO. It's a 3-letter word or abbreviation that you may have heard before, but it stands for conversion rate optimization. So we're going to be talking today about how to optimize your Shopify store to help you make the most money possible. So conversion is a word that gets tossed around a lot in e-commerce, and for good reason. Conversions basically mean money. Everyone that converts on your Shopify store means that they are buying something and adding more to your revenue. So of course, it's super important to have a high conversion rate. The other element of a conversion rate is a lot of people will focus on traffic when they are launching a Shopify store, or even when they're years into running a Shopify store. And traffic is great. It's obviously important. It's the only way you're going to make sales is if people are actually coming to your website. But if those people aren't being presented something that looks professional, that looks well laid out, or that's appealing to them or drawing them to make a purchase, chances are they may not make a purchase. It's so much more than just your product. And if you're spending money on Facebook ads, AdWord campaigns, social media to bring them to your website and they're not converting, then in essence you're wasting money. So conversion rate is super important to focus on before you start spending a lot of money on bringing traffic to your store. If you've done a little bit of Googling around conversion rates, conversion e-commerce, you've likely seen a lot of diagrams like this. They're all based upon a funnel. I like this diagram here. It's basically the idea is at the top of the funnel, the widest part, is where all your audience comes to your store. And as the funnel gets narrower and you draw the customer down a path of purchasing, fewer and fewer people are going to follow that path. As in, 100 may land on your homepage, only 50 may see a product, only 10 may add it to the cart, only 5 may go to the checkout, and may only 3 or 2 actually buy the item and follow through on that purchase. So this funnel indicates basically the percentage of customers coming to your store that are actually buying. So it's super important to be taking a look at. We're going to be talking about a few different things today. One of which is heat mapping. As you can see from this diagram here, this basically indicates how you can track where people are going on your website, where they're leaving from, where they're spending time. Are they focusing on the right elements of your store, or are they looking where you don't want them to necessarily look? We're going to be getting into that today, as well as we're going to talk about A/B testing. So how you can have multiple versions of your website, make changes to one side, show it to some of your audience, and basically compare and contrast and help you build the most optimal website possible. So fortunately for all of you guys and for myself, we have someone here that knows a lot more about conversion rate optimization than I do. We have Dylan Keenis here, who's going to be talking to us about conversion rate. Dylan, thanks for joining us today.
Hey everybody, it's nice to be on the webinar here today for the School of Commerce.
Yeah, and we're excited to have you on, Dylan. So let's get right down into it. So Dylan, why do you think optimization, like conversion rate optimization, is so important for an e-commerce store?
Optimization is absolutely important for an e-commerce store. Like you said, Kevin, you're already getting the traffic that you need to get your sales going, start generating revenue. But at some point, we want to start focusing on the best way to sell to people, and that's what a lot of conversion rate optimization is figuring out how your customers, the traffic that you're already getting, making the most of them in sales, figuring out the best way to sell to them through testing things on your website, catering certain pieces of your website to different parts of your audience, and a lot of experimentation to see what works the best, really.
So at what point do you know that you should be looking at conversion rate optimization? Obviously, Shopify, we have a ton of people on this podcast, I'm sure, that maybe have $1,000 in sales a month or less. At what point should they start looking at strategies to improve their conversion rate optimization?
That's a great question, and the honest question there is, or the honest answer there is, you should be thinking about it right from the get-go. Whether you have 100 visitors, 1,000 visitors, 10,000 and up, you want to know what that number is, how fast people are converting through your website, what that conversion rate is. You don't want to start worrying about optimizing it too early, though. At the end of the day, you do want to create the best user experience for people, but conversion rate optimization is all about the numbers, the analytics, the rates, and how people are going through the site. You don't have enough good information and enough good data at such a lower level of traffic. I would recommend to people out there, if you're wanting to start to get into this, your best bet is to have about 20,000 people coming to the site on a monthly basis and up. At that point, you're going to start getting some reliable data that you can say, without a doubt, yes, B is much better than A. This does much better than how we used to do it. Just simply from a data perspective, it's much more reliable. It's me sampling 100 people versus sampling 10,000 people. 10,000, we're going to get a much better look at how something's doing versus just that small sample size of 100.
So let's say, Dylan, I run a store. I don't, but let's say I run a store that falls into that traffic, the limit or whatever you had said. Where should I start when it comes to conversion? What should I start looking at first? What pages should I look at? Where do I begin? How do I get going?
That's a great question. So conversion rate optimization can start to take place, like you mentioned, that funnel. We can start to take place at any stage in that funnel. So if you take a real traditional Shopify funnel, it starts out a lot of the times on the home page, goes down into a collection page, and then the product page. So if we can start optimizing at any one of those steps, all the way into the cart, to get people to start converting at a higher rate. On the homepage, there's things we can do to make sure that people see the products that they want to see quicker. That's going to get them on the collection page. Doing things on your collection page to make products more appealing and easier to find gets them on the product page. Optimizing your product page so it's easy and efficient to add to cart gets them on the cart page and checking out a lot faster. If you're just starting out, though, I would really start to focus on kind of the money areas, if you will. I would start focusing on your product pages as well as your cart page as kind of your 1-2 punch there. That's where a lot of your money's being made. People are adding to cart, they're checking out. I would start with those 2 pages to begin with. And if you're really starting to prioritize, well, I have a really vast different catalog of products. You can even pick out your top 5, top 2, even your first best-selling product, and just start with that page. Start optimizing that. It doesn't need to be big things, whole new redesigns. You can start testing different types of content, different descriptions, different titles of your product, just to see how people start to react to it.
So you mentioned the cart page, Dylan. This actually brings a side question that I just thought of now that I'd love to ask you. As I was setting up a new Shopify store, I'm going to show you the example I set up a little bit later in the webinar. A lot of Shopify themes now have seemingly got rid of the cart page. A lot of them go directly from the product page. You add the item to your cart. It pops open a little modal, or maybe it slides in from the side. But there really is no cart page anymore. It goes directly from the product page to the checkout. Is that something you see success with? Something that you think that stores should maybe look at implementing a theme like that, or is it something that maybe they should hold off on?
Great question. Yeah, I would say that first and foremost, I'd probably say you should test it out. Depending on your market, maybe what age group your product is directed at. Older customers might like a more traditional, going from a product page to a traditional cart page and then having the checkout. As we're maybe a younger group of users, just want to get through the transaction as fast as possible, where maybe an older group, they like the comfort of that process, going through step 1, step 2, step 3. So I'd probably tell you to test it out first and foremost. But But that said, we have seen success, a lot of success with those type of slide out carts, kind of that express version of checking out on your Shopify store. The good news is even if you do have one of those slide out carts, one of those modals where it pops up and says, hey, you got all these items in your cart, do you want to check out? Your cart page still exists, and you can access it with going just to /cart at the end of your domain and seeing what it looks like. A real great test that we've done quite often for people is testing out, does that slide out cart actually convert a lot better than sending people directly to the cart page? And we've had different results for different clients in different markets. So it really does have to be catered to just your specific product, your audience, and the whole feel of your website.
So you mentioned testing and doing some compare and contrasting. So let's get down into one of the topics we mentioned earlier, and that's A/B testing. For those of you who don't know what A/B testing is, it's basically taking one version of your website, showing it to a subset of your users, maybe 50%, and then showing a different version of your web page to another 50%, and then comparing what performs better, what one generates more revenue based upon the same amount of traffic. That will kind of give you an idea of maybe which one you should focus on or which layout you should switch to. And I'm gonna pull up an example of one website that Dylan had sent me that he had worked on in the past. But while I have this on the screen, Dylan, could you chat us a little bit more about A/B testing or how someone would get started with A/B testing, if there's any tools they would need to download or what the easiest way to get started is?
Sure. So just to speak to A/B testing a little bit more, I think Kevin hit the nail on the head there, saying it really is just put two different versions of something up against each other and see which one performs better. And the real great thing about this is it takes the opinion out of it. It takes the emotional connection maybe to a design you really liked or a layout that you felt was the best. It takes that right out of it and relying just strictly on the data. What's making you more money at the end of the day when we compare A to B? And like Kevin said, generally tests are run straight down the middle. 50% of your audience is going to see the original, what you have now on your website. And the other 50% of your audience is going to see that variation, the thing that we think is going to outperform what you currently have now. At the end of the day, we're working on e-commerce stores, and the real key metric that we're looking to is revenue, probably as our primary. Which one of these is generating more money for us? And then secondary is actually we're looking at the actual e-commerce conversion rate. Sometimes you can get a little caught up thinking about, conversion rate's always about how fast, how easy, how much money are we making. But when we're talking about what a conversion is, a conversion can also be anything on the site. Any goal that you're looking to achieve on your website can be called a conversion. For example, newsletter signups. Email is still a really, really good avenue of marketing nowadays, and having somebody convert on signing up for your newsletter list, that could be considered a conversion, and we can start doing optimization towards having more newsletter signups just as a different goal. But at the end of the day, what we're talking about with split testing is really just putting A versus B, what's performing better, and let's move forward with what's making you more money at the end of the day.
No, that makes perfect sense. And now, I was just looking through this website you had sent me, Dylan, and one thing that I find a lot of stores don't focus on it, and I'm gonna say, kind of show an example is, with this discount hockey website you sent, is with mobile devices. Seems like a lot of websites don't necessarily focus on mobile devices and aren't optimized for the small screens and driving the message. And when I look at Discount Hockey's website, it's nice because I'm in a mobile screen size right now, as everyone in the webinar can see. And there's a ton of information right available. There's a sale right at the top. There's collections. It's very, very clean. If you look at my demo store, obviously when you come to desktop, it's like a huge image. You really can't necessarily tell what my store is about. And if we try looking at mobile, I'll load it up here. Like that's what you see on my store is basically one large image with a couple lines of text. It really doesn't necessarily drive the customer to make action. So do you guys focus a lot on mobile when you're looking at A/B testing? Clearly with Discount Hockey you did. Is it something that's a lot of people are talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody's talking about mobile nowadays, and certainly over the past 5 years, we've seen a dramatic shift in people using desktop computers and shifting all of that into just using your mobile phone. One of the first things we do when we're working with a client and starting to look at their conversion rates is see how much of your traffic is actually coming in through mobile devices and how much of it is still on desktop. What we've seen for a lot of people is that even though traffic is just probably 70% of the total of the users that they're getting to their website, a lot of the revenue still ends up on desktop. And that could be for a multitude of reasons. One, maybe your mobile experience just isn't optimized the way it should be. That's what we often find. The other usual reason is that depending on your website and the niche you're in, sometimes serious buyers, those people making the big purchases, oftentimes they're just making those larger purchases on desktop computers. They're just more comfortable. It feels still a little bit more secure for them. That said, we do kind of see that starting to shift as well as more people are getting comfortable just doing transactions on their mobile device. Security is getting better across the internet, and it's just becoming a more comfortable thing for people of all age groups, really.
And as it's kind of a natural transition. Is since we're talking about the action people are taking on web pages and what they're doing when they come to a page, where they're scrolling to, where their cursor's going, what they're clicking on. The topic of heat maps comes up pretty organically here. And now I showed an example of an image before of a heat map talking about showcasing where customers were searching on a Google search. What tools are you using for heat maps, and is it something that's you find really important to look at when you are looking at conversions?
Absolutely. Heat maps are pretty important to just give us an idea of what the user's looking at, where exactly they're clicking, and how far they get down the page. Sometimes often referred to as a scroll map as well. One of the really cool insights we got for a client like Discount Hockey was that their checkout button was just way too far down the page. And we saw that only a certain percentage of people were actually seeing it on the cart page. By moving it up and making sure that 90% of people, 100% of people actually see it, was a huge change and a huge shift in getting more people to check out. So that was just one insight we got just from seeing the heat maps and what people are doing. That said, we can't put all of our faith and intuition in the heat map. Just like I'd say to anyone, you can't put 100% of your confidence into any one data source. You have to take a little bit of analytics data in. You have to look at some heat maps. I also love really getting surveys, qualitative customer feedback as well, and kind of throwing that in. And then a little bit of intuition. Oftentimes that coming right from the store owners and and clients we're working with, because they know their audience best. And when we kind of bring all that data together, we can make some good recommendations, propose some solutions to a lot of the pain points, problems, and different things that are happening on the website.
No, I mean that's so true, and I love that you sent me this example, because when I'm going back and forth between these two cart pages, like you had mentioned with the checkout button, and I'm on a website like Discount Hockey, which was clearly optimized pretty well, and the checkout button is huge. It's red. It stands out. The price stands out, so I know exactly what I'm going to pay. And when I go to a website like mine, which hasn't been really optimized at all, the price is small. The checkout button kind of gets blurred with the rewards button. The update cart button stands out more. So my eyes are kind of telling me to update my cart, but that doesn't make sense. So you're right. Like, there's really a lot of changes that you can make to the cart page, and you can emphasize the parts where customers should be clicking, where they should be going.
Absolutely, yeah. I think your analysis of your cart page is pretty much bang on. That gold color, that gold brown, kind of sticks out quite a bit. And I think if we put a heat map on this, you'd see a lot of people kind of hovering and clicking towards that update cart. Just because it sticks out a little bit There is a bit of competition going on with that earn rewards, and it is a bit lower down the page. If I had to say one improvement right away, I'd put that checkout button right underneath the products, right above that special instructions, just to make it super easy. It's clear that here's where you want to check out.
I might have to get on that. Well, I'm gonna ask you a little question to almost tear my website apart. I'm gonna bring you to my homepage and tell me, based upon this default Shopify theme that I've used, I'm a reseller of Apple products, but hopefully no one from Apple's on here. Again, like last week, I might get an email from them getting upset that I'm selling their products. But like, what changes would you make to example my homepage? When you look at it right now, what issues do you see, and what would be your first steps to making my store better optimized?
So right off the top, I see your main call to action and the text for it. Now available, new MacBook Pro, shop now. It kind of blends into the background a little bit. It's a little hard to read. The background image itself is just a little bit busy. You're starting to see the keys and the text that's on the keys. So now my eye is kind of drawn into that contrast of the black and white. Hey, what's on those keys? And I'm starting to look at that. You don't have a real strong brand presence as far as a logo happening right now. And as well, we kind of have the same problem happening with your navigation. It starts to blend into the background where it's kind of hard to see what I'm actually trying to navigate to, or the different parts of your website. What we often find as well, for a lot of banners and sliders that people really like to have right on their homepage, is it kind of, especially if you're in a real specific product niche where maybe people won't quite understand what it is you're selling or the service you're offering right away, a real strong "what is my product" just right up front can be really powerful with asking them to take some sort of action. So in your case, Kevin, you're doing a pretty good job of having, hey, the new MacBook Pro, we're selling MacBook products here, shop now. I think that's really good, as opposed to starting to advertise sales and some other things where I'm in a pretty niche product industry. It's not something people are going to get or understand right away. I might need to introduce, hey, what are the benefits? What are the features? What at the end of the day is my product, and introduce that a little bit sooner.
Well, I can feel more sales are going to come already by making those few changes. What about if we look at, let's look at another page of my store, maybe the iPhone, my product page. Like you can see, it's a pretty good phone. It's an outdated model I'm selling. But do you see anything on this page that I could maybe be improving?
Absolutely. I think one of the first things is product images. People want to see exactly what they're getting. They want to see it from many different angles. The idea with product images, you want to get that idea of trying to almost put it in their hands before they have it. What we've seen a lot of success with is asking clients to put up lifestyle images or people using their products. So for your store, I might say, why don't you put somebody using the phone, either typing in a message, using the phone as a phone, whether or not people actually still do that nowadays.
No one does that anymore.
Looking more towards the product form and your selectors there. The title is prominent, and that's good. The price could stick out maybe just a little bit more, so people don't get lost and the price starts to blend in with the rest of the elements on the page. I think the one real big thing here is the add to cart and the send as gift. They're kind of competing for attention. If you know that primarily people on your store are buying it for themselves, and you just want that send as a gift as an extra nice little feature, I would kind of lessen the importance on that and not make it look exactly the same as your add to cart button. You don't want people to think as much as possible on your site. The easier it is, the more intuitive things are, where they can just keep clicking and not have to think about, do I want to add to cart, do I want to send as a gift? When if you didn't present that option as prominent, they might not even be having that thought to begin with. Finally, I'd say just bring out more content in your product description. I feel like product descriptions get overlooked quite a bit nowadays, but they're still very important. People want to read about the specs of the products you're selling, how you might use them, the benefits, all the features. They want all that nitty-gritty information.
So, I mean, if I make these changes, which I'm maybe I will, maybe I won't, I don't actually make these sales, but how long, do you figure I should leave these changes to see some numbers before I change them back. I know a lot of people might make a change and then leave it for 2 days and then not see an immediate improvement and switch it back. But how long or how many people should see it before you feel that it's an appropriate enough audience size?
That's a great question. So usually we don't recommend making a change without testing it. So the great benefit is with split testing, we're doing it all in real time. People are seeing an A and a B in the same timeline versus this week I'm going to have my original and compare it to next week I'm going to do something different. The problem with that is you don't have the same sample size. What if you do a marketing campaign last week that we're not doing this week? And now we don't have those same people coming to the site and they're reacting to it very differently. Especially around holidays, this could be a big issue as well, where a week before, maybe we're getting a little bit closer to Black Friday, to Christmas. And the week after, it's already passed. So that opportunity is kind of gone. So the marketing, the branding on the site might have changed, and we're kind of comparing apples to oranges instead of apples to apples. How long would I leave a test running, though, is a real great question. Generally speaking, at a very, very minimum, a week. We use a really great platform called Convert that does all the heavy lifting for us in terms of figuring out its confidence in the variation or the original, the improvement rates of the conversions happening, and also recording all of the revenue at the end of the day. So at a very, very minimum, we'd say a week before showing some signs of improvement and conversion rates going up. Ideally, 2 weeks plus for changes that are a little bit closer, that don't show as clear signs of just runaway wins.
And that makes perfect sense. It's March now, and this may seem like an obvious question. It's kind of maybe a low traffic time. Obviously it's in stark contrast to Christmas, where we get tons of traffic to our stores. When is the time we should be looking at making these changes? Does it make sense to make all these changes now and try to optimize on maybe less traffic so that you can take the benefit over the holiday season? Or do you find people doing a lot of optimizing when they get tons of traffic during Christmas, or do they kind of stay status quo during those busy times?
I would say there's never a bad time to start optimizing on your site. A lot of the times we'll shy away from big sales days just from a technical point of view to make sure everything's running properly on the site. I'm not going to be running a split test or anything like that during Black Friday, Cyber Monday. I'm not going to be doing that. But leading up to it, yes, absolutely. Let's figure out what's the best combination of changes we can make on the website that's going to make the most impact for Black Friday. I wouldn't say that there's a really bad time or a really good time to start optimizing. I would avoid high sales days just from a technical point of view. And also people have a bit of a slant in them as well at that point. Leading into, say, a Black Friday, people are going to be buying in bigger masses already. So we don't really know if it's the changes that had effect on people or it's the holiday season that they were going to buy that regardless. Whether your add to cart button was higher up on the page, your checkout button was high up on the page, whether you formatted your images the right way, your text, it might not have mattered.
I think that's a great place to leave it for now. I wanted to keep it within the timeline that I had told you guys we would stick to. I want to give you guys the ability to ask Dylan any of your optimization questions you do have. So please, if you have questions for Dylan, I'd love for you to submit them now. I want to first do two things. One, I'm going to give Dylan a chance to kind of talk about the optimization services that we offer here at Bold. But first, I want to tell you guys about the next upcoming School of Commerce lesson we'll have, which is 2 weeks from today. We're going to be talking about social media and how you can use social media to drive more traffic to your store and make sales. So hopefully you guys can join us for that. Hopefully you should see an invite in your inbox shortly. Secondly, if you guys stepped away from your computer at any point, the bulk of the webinar is going to be available on YouTube. So you guys will be receiving an email recording so you can watch it back, or if you want to re-listen to what Dylan said, you can do that with the recording. So Dylan, while we wait for anybody who has any questions about converting on their store, I want to give you a chance to talk about what you do here at Bold and a few of the services we offer.
Absolutely. Thanks, Kevin. My position here at Bold is I manage our managed services team, and we offer a variety of different services to our clients, but the main one is our data-driven development program. And what that is we're merging all the best parts of conversion rate optimization, all of the testing, data analysis, and all that upfront hard work to get really good end results with regular Shopify store maintenance and management. That together, those two pieces, is our data-driven design program in our managed services. If you're interested in that, drop us a line and check us out on the Bold Commerce website.
Perfect. Thanks for that, Dylan. I actually don't see any questions that have been submitted by any of the attendees yet, so it seems like we did a great job at covering up conversion rate optimization.
We either did a really good job or we confused a lot of people.
Well, I hope we did a great job, Dylan. I think you had a lot of value to add to this, and it was great having you on because I know that I couldn't have talked about conversion rates like you did. And hey, I got some tips for my store to make it a little bit better, and maybe I'll sell some more iPhones.
Just watch out for Apple.
Yeah. Oh, I definitely will. So if you guys have any questions afterwards, oh wait, sorry, we do have one question. I don't want to miss it here. So the question is. Dylan, do you have any tips on conversion during the actual checkout flow on Shopify? I often see a drop-off on step 1 versus step 2 when a person is actually in the checkout process. So, Dylan, before you answer that, just to clarify, step 1, I believe, on the checkout is when you're asking for shipping information, so where the package is going to get shipped to. And then step 2, when you click proceed in the checkout, is when it actually asks for the payment information and the billing information. Right? That's correct?
Yeah. Step 1 of the checkout is kind of those basic name, address, details, and step 2, I believe, is your shipping options. We've seen that as well between entering your initial data for who you are, where you live, where this package is going to go to, and shipping. Depending on the Shopify plan you're on, if you're on a Shopify Plus plan, we do have quite a few abilities there to customize what certain elements show up in the checkout and how they display. With a lot of the regular Shopify plans, unfortunately, we're kind of tied to what's already there. As far as some tips to get started in optimizing there, I would start even a step before that and look at your cart page. Does your cart page instill confidence in the buyer? Have you really sold them on your values as a brand and a company? What are some of the things, some of the extra inertia or some of the momentum you can build up on the cart page, on the product page, so it really carries them right through the whole checkout process? Specifically to speak right into that step of the checkout, there's a lot of the buzz things that people like to do is putting in trust badges, customer comments, all that stuff. It works. It absolutely does help in some circumstances. I've seen where it really helps and drives conversion a couple points up. I've also seen it where people don't pay any attention to it at the same time. I would probably start still maybe a step before, making it really easy on the cart page and just try and carry that momentum of the entire purchase throughout the entire checkout process.
Perfect. Thanks for answering that question, Dylan. So that was the only question asked today. So if you guys have questions later on, after you had a chance to really absorb all this information, or if you listen to it again and you have some questions on what Dylan has said, you can reach either of us via email. You're probably going to want to reach Dylan about conversion rates. His email is dylan@boldcommerce.com, correct?
Yep.
So feel free to reach out with him if you have some questions or you want some tips. Also, we're going to be sending out an email afterwards with a link to the recording. And if there's any, a few of the tools that Dylan mentioned, I'll make sure that we include the link to those so you guys can check those out if you wish. So again, I want to thank you guys for taking 40 minutes of your time to spend with us and learn a little bit about conversion rates. And I hope to see you at our next School of Commerce lesson, which will be held 2 weeks a day on social media. So thank you again and have a great week, guys.
Thanks, everyone.